Hello, boyos. Rich Boy J here back with another video, and this is another episode of Your Questions Answered. If you're not familiar with it, Your Questions Answered is a Q&A series that I do here on this channel. If you want to see your questions in one of these videos, put it in the comment section below. Make sure it is Lego, Star Wars, or Lego Star Wars related, and then check back next week to see if you made the cut. I was very thrilled with some of the questions we got this week, so let's go ahead and jump right into them. First question comes from Playmation, the creator of the Cold Like Hawk music video. If you guys haven't checked that out, as well as my reaction video to it, definitely go do it. Playmation did a wonderful job with it, and I can't thank him enough for what he did on that thing. It is just absolutely incredible. But his question is, nice video, glad to see an intro again. Do you think that we'll ever see official Force Ghost minifigs in the Star Wars line? Back in 2013, I thought the Ewok Village was a missed opportunity for them to include 3 ghosts, and now it seems unlikely that we'll ever get them unless they include them in a polybag or special promo. Also, there may be some controversy of Anakin's ghost. They'd have to use Hayden Christensen's design because that's canon now. What are your thoughts? I feel like ever since I played Lego Star Wars 2, the original trilogy, I have always wanted to see actual minifigure versions of Force Ghosts. And back in the day, when I used to speculate on the May the 4th figure, when I would get excited for it, I would say, you know, the Ghost figures would be a perfect thing to do. You could do all 3 of them, you could do 1 of them. Just any type of Force Ghost minifigure would be the perfect thing to have for May the 4th. Now, since they don't even do May the 4th figures anymore, I'm not in that mind frame, so I'm honestly not sure when we'll ever see them. I feel like our Star Wars minifig polybags come few and far between nowadays. I think that, you know, the best case we may have to see them is during this hiatus between episode 9 and the new trilogy, given that they're going to take a bit of a break. So, I mean, I guess that could be a great opportunity for them to dive into some things from pre-existing films that we haven't gotten before. The Force Ghosts are probably one of the biggest things that I think fans have been clamoring for that we haven't gotten it. But I can't really say I'm confident that we'll get them anytime soon. Just seeing as it's been so long since that we've wanted them, and there doesn't really seem to be any desire on Lego's behalf to release them anytime soon. I mean, of course, I don't know that for a fact. They could drop them tomorrow for all I know. But given what we've seen, it doesn't really seem to be a priority for them. I imagine they're holding that in their back pocket for some time later down the line. But I would certainly love to see it. If the May the 4th figures were a thing still, I think that would be the best place for it, but clearly they're not. So I'm not sure, man. I'm not sure. Also, about your last point, I don't know. Is there controversy about Hayden Christensen being Anakin's Force Ghost nowadays? Let me know. I don't really foresee that being a big issue for them doing it, but I don't know if people are super offended by that or upset about that, then I don't know, maybe it is, but that's not something I've really. Next question comes from Starboys. He says, have you ever considered making a Star Wars mock that wasn't based on something visually seen in the movies or any animated series? Perhaps something of your own creation slash design, or something that has been spoken but never seen, or even something from other content such as comics or novels. Generally, no. I like really replicating things that we see on screen. I think that me doing a Battlefront 2 mock, specifically Vardos, is probably the extent of which I would go in that direction, unless we just hear about something that I think really sparks my imagination. My creative juices really come from recreating something you've seen on screen and kind of evoking those same emotions that you would have been feeling while watching it play through on screen. And I realize like those are certainly things that happen when you can read a novel or read a comic, for that example. But I don't know, I just feel like making something from on screen, whether it be, you know, the movies or a video game, it feels more real to me. Like, obviously the video game isn't real, but with the graphics that we have in video games now, I mean, they might as well be. And I don't know, it's just easier for me to like envision myself in those environments and really get inspired and excited about building things from those kind of areas. One of the things that I'm super excited about doing one day is the Colossus from Star Wars Resistance, which is obviously it's a 2D cartoon kind of, or I mean, I guess it's 3D simulating 2D cartoon. And obviously like that doesn't feel nearly as real as like a movie or even a video game, but maybe that's one of those locations that, you know, we see and it's not exactly something from a film that I would be really excited to build. I think that would probably be the furthest I would go into something that we don't see in a film. But thank you for your question. I really enjoyed it. Next question comes from JC. He says, what is your favorite of the vehicle MOCs you've built, your MOCs or other builders' MOCs? I'm going to answer this in two parts. The first one, as for like my MOCs, my favorite vehicle has to be my Millennium Falcon. I think that my ATM-6 is right up there, but the Falcon is so iconic, and having that full interior in it just means everything to me. That, for me, is my ultimate Star Wars vehicle. That's why I built it so early along in my MOC career, and that's something that I would never take apart or get rid of in my collection. I think that it's just so wonderful that I have that in my collection. As for other people's builds, I'm probably going to have to go with N3rd's Ewing model, which is actually sitting right there. That thing is just beautiful. It is a really good size, and just the detail in it is incredible. The fact that it can fit two pilots was really the biggest selling point to me. But I mean, it's just a wonderful model. If you guys haven't checked it out, make sure you go look on his Flickr. He has pictures of it there. And I would love to do a review of it at some point. I just have not gotten around to it. But yeah, N3rd's Ewing is a beauty. Next question comes from Ben McLennan. He says, when you put vehicles in MOCs, do you prefer Lego's designs or other creators? I think my general philosophy when it comes to MOCs versus vehicles that Lego makes is, if I care enough about the vehicle, do I care to have like a super detailed version of it? If that's not the case, I'll settle for whatever the version Lego puts out. It doesn't mean enough to me to have a MOC of it. And that's kind of the same approach I take towards building my own MOCs. Like if the Lego set I feel does a good enough job at recreating the vehicle, I'm fine with having the Lego set in it. Like obviously for the crate MOC that Garrett and I did, we used the Lego version of the Ski Speeders, and at least one of the TIE Fighters in the MOCs was the Lego version of it. But I think generally I like to have MOCs in it, whether it be my own or other people's. I think that, MOCs just have a certain standard of detail, and when you have sets that aren't really up to that standard, when like everything else in the MOC is detailed really well, I feel they can really stick out in a not very good way. So generally I will go for having MOCs in my MOCs, but if the Lego set is good enough, I'm totally fine with it. For example, I had the UCS Imperial Shuttle in my Vardos MOC, and literally everything else in that MOC was some sort of MOC, but Lego did such a wonderful job on the UCS shuttle, I really couldn't help but put that in the MOC. That was really one of the biggest reasons for me wanting to do that MOC, was to get some use out of that Imperial shuttle. So great question. Next question comes from Hideous Sidious. He says, since you usually build MOCs out of pieces in your current collection, do you think you'll ever reach a point where you'll never have to buy parts for a MOC again? I love this question so much. And this is a mindset that I had probably when I first started building, and maybe a few years into it, where it's basically like, okay, if I keep building, that means that I'm going to have more parts in my collection when I take the MOC apart. So hopefully at some point I'll have to buy little to no pieces. In my experience, that has not been the case, really just because my MOCs seem to be getting bigger and bigger. So like, even though my collection is growing, maybe my MOCs are kind of growing at a higher rate. So it seems that I'm trying to play catch up with it. That's not to understate like my parts collection. Like I'm definitely happy with it. I'm not buying nearly as parts as I used to, or as someone else would have to if they were just starting MOCs fresh. But it isn't the situation I kind of envisioned myself in, where with any given MOC, I just have tons and tons of parts up front to pour into it, and I could like hold off on buying orders. Like with Vardos, I didn't expect to have to buy many parts. I bought tons of parts. Starkiller, I thought was going to be the same way, and Starkiller's been a little bit better just because like the things that are in Starkiller are similar to other things I've built, like snow, light gray and dark gray parts for the base, stuff like that. I have a bunch of, so it'll help, but there's really just no substitute for unique details in certain MOCs, so I've kind of had to accept the fact that I'm going to have to buy parts. And the biggest factor in that is Lego's constantly putting out new parts every single year, so unless I'm upfront just buying tons of sets with the new parts in them, or upfront just buying all new parts, like whenever MOCs come up, if there's a new part that I think can best represent the design I'm going for, I'm going to have to buy a bunch of that new part. So it's much better than it was when I first started out, but I don't have the, I guess, irrational idea that as you keep building more and more MOCs, you're going to get to a point where you barely have to buy parts anymore. As you grow as a builder, you'll find new use for new parts that you haven't used before. And I mean, if anything, if you're building, a MOC, if there's just one dominant part that you have not used before, then I mean, obviously you're gonna have to buy a bunch of it. Like you're not gonna have a bunch of every single part. So Maybe down the line, maybe dozens of years from now, that will be the case, but it certainly is not the case right now. But thank you for that question. That's something I actually really thought about a lot. Next question comes from Watto. He says, your previous pod racer mocks were astonishing. Would you ever consider making mocks of other races from the Podraces Classic? Yeah, I had to do that. Yeah, so thank you very much for the kind words. As for whether or not I would build mocks of the other pod racers, I think I ended up making like 11 of the 18 pod racers, and 2 of those are the Lego sets. So technically I designed 9 unique ones. I really just chose the ones that I thought looked the coolest or that we saw on screen for any substantial amount of time. If I ever, well, when I do the big pod race mock, I mean, I guess it would make sense to build all of them. Like, why build so many and leave out that last like 30% of them? But then again, it's like, do I really need to have every single pod racer? I don't know. It's something that I kind of go back and forth with. I think long term, I probably will end up building all of them just to have a full collection of them. But it's not something that I really plan on doing anytime soon. But thank you for your question. Next question comes from Elisa Page 484. He says, what is your favorite pod racer design from the Boots Eve Classic? Another pod racer question. You guys like the pod race, apparently, as I do. But favorite pod racer design has to be Team Toes. Team Toes design is just so freaking cool. Some honorable mentions are, of course, Quadraneros. Like, how could you not mention him? His 4-engine design is actually quite cool. I think Soboball actually has a really nice looking pod race design. And other than that, maybe Dudbolt. I like the way Dudbolt's pod racer looks. So yeah, those are some of my favorite pods. What are you guys' favorite pods? Let me know in the comment section below. And the final question of the day comes from Santa Claus. He says, would you like it if LEGO made a small line of double large battle packs with 8 figs and a better build for $30? Yeah, that'd be awesome, but I don't really see LEGO doing that. I feel that a set that's $15 with 4 figures seems a lot more realistic than, you know, a $30 set with 8 figures. Like, figures and sets don't scale that way, you know. Just because, you know, we get 4 figures in a battle pack that's $15 doesn't mean we would get like 8 figures in a $30 set, and similarly we wouldn't get 16 figures in a $60 set. So I don't really see LEGO doing something like this. It seems very unrealistic. It'd be cool to get 8 figures, like an army builder, and a $30 set. That'd be awesome, but that's just not really the way that the amount of figures in a set scales with the size of the set. But that's going to finish up your question answered today. Hope you guys enjoyed watching this. Like I said before, if you want to see your questions in one of these videos, put it in the comment section below. Make sure it is LEGO, Star Wars, or LEGO Star Wars related, and then check back next week to see if you make the cut. And like I always say, if you like what I do, go ahead and support the video by hitting that like button, support the channel by smashing that subscribe button, and I'll be back again very soon.